The Calgary Flames still have a lot of learning to do ahead of next season.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, joined by my partner in crime, Nick Zararis. How you doing, Nick?
I'm chilling. It's Thursday. We're almost at the weekend. Things are looking better.
Things are definitely looking up, and today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Today, we are going to apply some critical thinking skills and lessons that the Flames could, benefit from learning. And, of course, we're going to talk about Vegas and Florida because obviously they're doing something right. They've done something right to get to, I almost said the World Series because we were just talking about baseball, to the Stanley Cup final. So, obviously, the Flames just need to, it's a copycat league. We all know this. But make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you're getting your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. So subscribe, follow, just hang out with us. We're here for you every day. What do you think the biggest lesson is that the Flames could learn?
So this is going to sound counterintuitive because the next two segments are going to be us talking about Vegas and Florida specifically. But you need to be trying to win in a way that you can win. You can't win trying to do what Vegas does, what Florida does, what Toronto, what Tampa, what Boston. You are only going to be able to win with the guys you have. And we've talked about this a lot in regards to coaching, specifically because the Flames are in need of a coach. When you're looking at guys to bring in, whether they're coach, player, you need to understand what makes them successful where they are. Because if you can't imitate or replicate that environment for them to be successful in, they're not going to be able to be as successful as they were. These two teams in particular, and we'll talk about Vegas and Florida more specifically as we go on here, but they've done one thing commonly, which is they've identified guys on other teams in smaller roles and given them time to kind of grow and really kind of maximize what they're good at. And we'll talk about that more when we get to it. But the main idea here is good teams play their game. You are good at what you are good at. When you get away from what you're good at because you're trying to live up to something else, because you're trying to, the perfect example is the series going on right now. Yeah. Because Florida got this far playing with the after the whistle shenanigans, the overly physical stuff, the stuff that typically gets penalized, but for 2 rounds against Toronto and Carolina, they got away with it. They weren't getting as many penalties, and they played teams with struggling power plays, would be fair to describe those. And against Vegas, who has a very good power play and is a better team, those stupid penalties are killing Florida, but Florida's trying to live up to that narrative. Well, we played like this, and it made us successful, and they're not adapting, and they're not looking inward. They're trying to play a specific type of game. You need to stick to what is working. You got to be able to adapt. And the other point I wanted to make was it ties into this. Vegas, it's a little tricky to say this specifically, but working for versus buying your success. There's this idea in hockey where you see guys, bottom 6 guys on Stanley Cup winning teams all the time get poached. Mm-hmm. No matter who wins, they always get poached by other teams because, well, he's got intangibles. He knows what it takes to win. He plays with energy. He plays with passion. He's good in the room. All of those things. And those are the guys that you need to be developing in-house because those are guys who only play 11, 12 minutes, 13 minutes a game. And those are guys who, if you overpay them, they're going to really hamstring your salary cap because they don't play enough minutes to be commensurate with the amount of money they're going to get. And the second part of that is that if you do that, you are trying to import other teams' culture into your team. And the first point we just made was you need to be doing your thing. Trying to play like other teams is what's going to get you into trouble. If you import those guys who play with Tampa's style or Boston style or their philosophies or their identity, you're going to have a harder time because that guy doesn't have a big enough role on your team to be able to spread that amongst your team. It's a foolish idea to think you can bolt on one or two guys from successful teams, and that especially guys who don't play a lot, and they're just going to be able to have this magic trickle-down effect of everything they know is going to get passed around.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with this team finding an identity. They've always played this like underdog mentality, at least as long as I've been covering them. And I think for the most part, it has been true. They have had luck has not been on their side, and they've found themselves in unfortunate situations time and time again. And I think that it's so easy to just kind of roll over and die and just be like, okay, this is my career here in Calgary. This is just what it is. But then I also think that, after last season, a lot of these guys that are returning are going to have some sort of vengeance, really, and being like, this is what the locker room really is. It wasn't what it was last year, especially for, guys like Weegar, Kadri, and Huberdeau, who spent their first year pretty much in hell in a locker room.
The other point of that I think is worth pointing out is nobody believes in you is the most powerful motivator you have. We talk about this all the time. The most delusional person to ever exist is Tom Brady, who after winning 7 Super Bowls still believes people are doubting him. Like when they won the 5th or the 6th Super Bowl and him and Edelman were doing nobody believe, bro, you won 13 games in the regular season. We expected you to have a chance to win the Super Bowl. Michael Jordan, same thing. That is a powerful motivator. If you can delude yourself into nobody believes in us, that's a powerful. You think about the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots, wearing the dog masks and the barking. We're the underdogs. You can't take that. Nobody believes in us, and that's a powerful motivator. Hell, you heard me on this show going into that Friday night game against the Ducks doing the nobody believes in you. What are you prepared to do about it? It's true. And if you can get that kind of buy-in, it's hard to do that over an extended period of time. I'll give you that. The hockey season is very long. In crunch time, that not being able to get up for that moment tells you that you're either not mentally strong enough or you just can't get up for the moment. And those are both things you need to figure out if you want to be a successful hockey team. You need to have a mentally tough group. But we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. And one last point on this before we move on. Buying your credibility in free agency looks good. You get to tell your owner, well, we brought this guy in. You get to tell Elliot Friedman. You get to tell Jeff Merrick. You get to tell whoever you want. Oh, we brought this guy in. He's going to make our team so much better. We're so excited that he's here. You get the easy press clipping. You get the, oh, well, he wasn't on the team last year, so the team's got to be better, right? Because they didn't have this guy last year. Again, totally ignorant of what made this guy successful where he was previously. And I'll give you a perfect example of this before we move on. Vinny Trocheck is a good hockey player. He has no elite traits. The Rangers saw him put up pretty good counting stats on a Carolina team in a limited role, on a Carolina team that relies on volume, jamming the net front, and shooting as many pucks on net as possible. The Rangers don't do that. You drop a good player who is good in one place into a completely different environment. And Trocheck had an okay counting stat season, but he wasn't nearly as effective as he was in Carolina because the Rangers are asking him to do stuff he's not particularly good at. So yeah, you can get a good player in free agency, but if you try and force a square peg into a round hole, you're not going to get you're not getting it all the way in there. You might think you can get it all the way in there and be a perfect fit, but you just can't.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
No, they're living people. They're people.
Right. Like I wouldn't throw you into an operating room and be like, remove this person's appendix.
Exactly.
Maybe if you've watched enough Grey's Anatomy, you'd have enough confidence, but
I was always more House than Grey's Anatomy as far as my medical procedurals.
That's fair. So coming up next, we are going to talk about the two teams battling it out for the Stanley Cup and, just kind of their identity and what they've brought to the table that has made it successful.
Oh, I have breaking news.
Oh.
Taylor's dropping 2 songs at midnight tonight.
Can she... What? This woman does not let me rest.
She does not. No, she does not.
There is no off season. But anyway, it's game time. You can go see Taylor Swift with Gametime. But yeah, no, Gametime is an excellent app that is there for you when you are on the hunt for concert tickets. I almost said movie tickets, but like theater tickets, comedy show, whatever you're looking for, baseball game, basketball's almost over. But browse through the Gametime app and find shows in your area that you might not normally go to if you had to pay full price. And of course, you can use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first order. It is fantastic because you get images of your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. I think that's great, especially if you're going to a new venue. And tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. And thank you, everyone, for sticking around. Locked on Taylor Swift / Locked on Flames today. And yeah, make sure you're subscribed because we have more breaking news, I'm sure, at some point through the summer. Because that's just...
If Flames ever hire a coach, yes.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping they were going to do that today while I was at work. So like we had something to talk about. I guess Taylor having 2 songs is pretty good.
Hey, man,
But
we haven't done what Flames players, what Taylor Swift song yet. We're not that starved for content. That'll come at some point this summer. That will 1,000% happen at some point this summer because there's not going to be a lot to talk about in late August.
I was just going to say that is going to be some dog days of summer, middle of August nonsense while we are waiting for everyone to arrive back in Calgary.
Correct.
But Vegas, what I'm so tired of hearing is how Bruce Cassidy is in the Stanley Cup final with Vegas and the Bruins got bounced in round 1 and how
something Karma's my boyfriend, Karma's a cat purring in my lap. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I love Bruce Cassidy. I think he's fantastic. He is. I like him as a coach, and obviously we don't know everything that goes on, but I think that he is an effective leader, and that's what you need, and it's clearly worked for Vegas.
Oh, and I think to that point, I think you can be a good coach and still wear out your run your course somewhere.
Absolutely.
I really do think you can be an effective coach and run out your course because that's just the way people are. You can be really good at your job, but you get burnt out after a while. You need a new voice. You can be really good. That Bruins team this year was really good. They just needed a new voice to kind of usher them into whatever the next iteration of that team was going to look like, a little more offense forward, a little more offensive friendly. Words are hard sometimes. A little more offensive friendly than what you would expect. One point on Vegas that I think people have they're missing the boat on. Part of the reason Vegas has been so aggressive in the way they've constructed their roster is hockey's won on the margins. You can have good players. You think about like Alex Tuck, who's a pretty solid hockey player, but Vegas said we can get somebody better than him in here. And that's where playoff hockey is won, is on the margins. You think about how close some of these series come down to, a couple bounces, a couple overtime games. You think about all the overtime games the Panthers won on the way to the Cup final. Yeah. So you have to be ruthless and you have to constantly be looking, well, where can we get better? Especially for a team like Vegas that's so top heavy, where they have 5 or 6 guys, that's a significant bulk of their cap space. Yeah. So that forces you to really get creative. It means, okay, we're going to have to play somebody who's probably not a top 6 skill set in our top 6. How can we get the most out of them? I'm going to say the word Brett Howden. I'm not going to get upset. Brett Howden was an atrocious hockey player when he was with the Rangers, but playing with Chandler Stevenson, who's one of, if not the best puck retrievers in the entire league, and Mark Stone, one of the best two-way players in the entire league, he is a passable hockey player because he only has to get the puck. He only has to skate. Yeah. That's all Brett Howden has to do and get open. Brett Howden can skate. That's all he can do. He doesn't have great finishing talent. He's not that physical, but that understanding of his skill set means We know what we need to do to get the most out of him, which is why they're playing him with Stevenson and Stone. Chandler Stevenson, another example, somebody they got for a 5th-round pick who never really played heavy minutes before he got to Vegas, killed penalties a little bit in Washington, but somebody who did not have a significant track record of any type of success. And they just took the training wheels off of him in Vegas and said, go get the puck. And he's one of the best puck retrievers in the entire league. That willingness to kind of take chances, to be aggressive, I think it's true, especially in regards to Florida as well, who we're going to talk about in a few minutes, but never is trying to stop improving. That's really that's the main takeaway I have for Vegas. Never try to stop improving.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of people they did doubt Vegas heading into this season because the goaltending situation was just up in the air. They didn't know what was happening. And they had a good streak going for a little bit, and then, of course, injuries happened. And listen, Mark Stone and that back, we got to figure something out there. We got to figure out why his back's always hurting. But I think it's great that Jack Eichel has come in and just had a phenomenal playoff run. I think that it's great to see that, especially with him never having playoff experience before. And then obviously to see him coming back from his surgery, that intense surgery. Like, people didn't know if he was going to play hockey again. You don't know.
Bro, there were people on that internet acting like they were going to lobotomize him. There were people on Beyonce's internet talking like nobody's ever done this before. If they did it to MMA fighters and they came back to fight, a hockey player will be fine. Now, I never understood. We're doubting modern medicine here. Modern medicine, Henry Kissinger's like 135 years old. If modern medicine can keep him alive, we can fix Jack Eichel's neck. Like, I don't understand why people doubt modern medicine at this point. People come back from torn ACLs in 6 months now. Sports are just different. Medicine is just different now. That's why I never understood that. Eichel has shown a track record of being legitimately one of the 15, 20 best players in the entire sport on an awful team, an absolutely awful team. And people were like, yeah, he's not going to be good. And they judged that on 18 games last year on a Vegas team that fell apart because they didn't have enough healthy bodies to play.
What a surprise.
It happens. And that's why all of Vegas was too aggressive. They soured relationships with players, what they did to Marc-Andre Fleury. That's why I felt like all of that was so premature. They had one season. Jack Eichel played 18 games last year, and they're already right. And people were already ready to write the obituary about that team. You got to let things play out. Hockey there is so much that goes into winning eventually. All of those failed playoff runs, all of those missed playoff spots, they accumulate. You're learning something there. You think about a cut healing. What's part of that? The scab. That's what those traumatic and losing experiences are.
Everything you lose is a step you take.
Yes, exactly.
I think that, I hate Vegas. I really do. And I don't want to see them win. But I also can't see Sam Bennett lift the Stanley Cup. He has gotten under my skin so much.
It's hater season.
It's always hater season.
There are more people watching the Stanley Cup final because there are players they hate in this series than people who actually like these teams. That's really where we're at. There are large swaths of people in the greater Toronto area rooting for Vegas with the fire of 1,000 suns.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I should probably be rooting for Vegas considering they destroyed the Bruins, but they also destroyed the Flames enough in the regular season over the last 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is now. But anyways, just go into this final 2, 3, however many games with the same thing you've been doing. Florida, on the other hand, they have a little bit of a mess to clean up, and we're going to talk about that next. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick minute to tell you about our friends at Birddogs. Nick, I know I asked you the other day,
I'll stand up. I'll stand up. I am.
He's going to show them off. If you're not watching on YouTube, look at that. He's got the gray. Are those 5-inch?
Yeah.
The gray 5-inch Birddogs. So comfortable. They have the liner, so you're not chafing. You don't have to worry about that. They're comfortable. You can dress them up, keep them casual, wear them when you're working out, and then run to the barbecue in them too. I keep mine in my gym bag. Nick wears his when he's recording. And what better way to relax? You just get to be comfortable in them. So you should get yourself a pair of Birddogs and use code LOCKEDONNHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with every purchase. All you have to do is visit birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. Again, that is code LOCKEDONNHL for a free tumbler with every purchase. And if you order them, let us know. They have just a wide variety, I feel like, of colors and selections. So get your Yeti style tumbler today when you order Birddogs with code LOCKEDONNHL. Why on God's green earth do the Panthers have to do this?
So there's a few points to make here. You heard me talk about it before. When you're forced into making decisions, you have to get creative. These are two non-traditional hockey markets. These are two teams that people didn't really know how aggressive Vegas was going to be, and now that's part of it. Is just when you can't guarantee people are going to want to come to you in free agency, that your restricted free agents, the guys you draft, are going to want to stay. You have to get inventive. You think about some of the guys who are playing key roles. You think about a Carter Verhaeghe, who bounced around quite a while till he found a spot. Anthony Duclair, who bounced around a while till he found a spot. Sam Bennett on a new team. Matthew Tkachuk on a new team. Radko Gudas, multiple teams. Bobrovsky, multiple teams. Where Florida doesn't quite have the island of misfit toys that Vegas did in its inaugural season, but it's a similar idea. Sure, Florida's got your foundational pieces. You've got your Barkov, your Ekblad, the guys they drafted, kept, developed, extended, etc. But these are two teams that have had to be aggressive because the circumstances are different, obviously. Vegas, brand new team. You can be as aggressive as you want when you have all that cap space. Florida has to trade for people and has to throw a lot of money at people to get people to come there because they need that legitimacy. You need guys who are there as your building blocks so that when the time comes, oh, I want to go there to play with that guy. Kind of what happened with Matthew Tkachuk, where, oh, I want to play with those guys. Those guys are pretty good. You need to be able to do that. And that's what I think both of these teams can feel good about is that they staked their claims. They made really aggressive moves. Florida, and I'm tired of reading about how Team X can make their Matthew Tkachuk trade this summer. There are no Matthew Tkachuk trades. Okay. No. You had Matthew
is Matthew Tkachuk.
Exactly. You had one restricted free agent leveraging his way out of a situation. Pierre-Luc Dubois could do something similar, but he's not on the tier of player of Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk is one of the 10 best players in the entire league. Pierre-Luc Dubois is good. He's a first-line center, 70 points, drives play both ways, power play guy, good player. Not an elite player. No, he's not. And you're not going to get nearly the return you got for Matthew Tkachuk. Sure, you're going to get something. You'll probably get a first-round pick and maybe a high-end prospect. That's it. Matthew Tkachuk got two all-star caliber players, and I know all-star in hockey isn't the same as all-star in basketball or baseball, but you got two players. You had somebody who coming off a 100-point season, and you got one of the best defensive defensemen in the entire league and a draft pick. So you are not going to be able to execute that type of trade. I know people are like, well, Mitch Marner's already making too much money for that trade to make sense right now. He would have to need an extension for that trade to make sense. If you want to say next summer, Austin Matthews, maybe we can have that conversation as, oh, this is the opportunity for a Matthew Tkachuk-like trade. This is the problem with hockey because people don't think that creatively within the sport. So when one person actually does something aggressive and risky, everybody's mystified, like, oh, you can do that? And that's really what this is, because in other sports, this happens all of the time.
All the time.
Kevin Durant said, I want to go to the Suns. And 5 days later, the Nets traded him to the Suns. That's how it works in the other sports where the players actually hold some of the power.
Yeah. And I think that that's pretty neat. I think that it's, obviously important for the players to have a say. And kind of dictate their own, future and what's going on with them that season and whatnot. I really wish that Florida I wish neither of these teams are in the Cup final because I don't like either of them. They both have really redeeming qualities, and then there's things like you just peel back the layers like an onion, and you're
it's complicated.
Horrible.
Nothing's black and white. Everything is gray. Yeah,
and I'm happy for Sergei Bobrovsky, of course. Before this series, but it was really great to see him bounce back the way that he did and as quickly as he did. And how many times have we talked about on this show that goaltending is unpredictable, and we didn't know what we were going to get heading into this series, and what have we gotten so far from him?
Aiden Hill's been great.
Yeah, he's
somebody who did not have. Hang on, before we get out of here, I want to make sure I'm saying the right number because I vaguely remember how many starts he had before this season.
He was a Flames killer.
He had, before this season, 49-25. Was that 74? 74 career NHL starts before this year? Yeah.
That's not.
It's not a lot. It's not a big track record. No.
No, I don't know. I think it's really nice to see him, especially because San Jose had such a very rocky situation with that whole organization trying to build themselves back up, and trading him was the right move. I know a lot of Sharks fans are like, well, was it too early? Did we really need to do this? Yeah, you did. And it's great to see someone come from a situation like that and have success. It might not be sustainable success. I don't know. It's still early in his career, obviously. But it's so nice to see. I'll turn off the haterade for once and just be happy for him.
Hey, man, the plucky goalie who comes out of nowhere to make a deep playoff run, it happens. It's a good story. I mean, it sucks that Jordan Binnington is one of the people in that story, but it happens.
2019? That year never happened.
I forgot you existed.
There we go. I thought that it would kill me, but it didn't. So, thank you everyone for hanging out with us on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Stick around. There's a lot of exciting stuff to come, especially once this team names a head coach. They have wrapped up their second round of interviews and apparently are leaning towards Huska and Mitch Love as internal hires. I get it. Makes the most sense. Those two are probably going to bring the most energy and fun to your team because that's just, they've worked. I hate calling them kids because they're not. They're young men, but they've worked and developed the AHL players and they know how to get them going. Now it can hopefully translate to the NHL level.
Exactly.
And do you have anything you would like to add before we sign off for today?
Hope everyone has a good weekend. I know it's Thursday, but I won't see you guys till next week. I'll see you guys then.
Alrighty. Well, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube as well. And I will see you tomorrow with hopefully some fun news.